Ngồi Palden Sabe Lama Rinpoche Dagi Jiwa Pende Den Shula Kaden Jempa Gone Jesonte Kuzon Du Ding Adu Sadu Soy Ning Tao Jempa Fire Len Mantra Lord Chamber Chagun Denisi Drupa Chamber Chamdru Chiyantan Lodsa Chamber Shabla Solvande Nutu Chamber Kundra Seneje Kaje Chamber Lama Nyepaze Sundu Chamber Drupe Jasensur Repa Chamber Shabla Solvande Tekpa Chamber Rikcho Yonsuse Shaja Chamber Topa Ngundujur Tinle Chamber Kata Nyampada Nigam Chamber Shabla Solvande Tampa Namla Gupe Satabdu Drupju Tensin Chonam Shabden Jing Tempa Rinchen Choju Jepadang Chamber Shapa Shoy Jewa Kuntu Yanda Lamadang Dame Chuchi Pala Lon Chuching Sadang Lamji Yanten Rapsune Doje Changi Gopang Yoto Shon Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shangju Padu Dani Chap Suji Dagi Jin Soji Pe Sunam Ji Drola Penje Sanje Drupa Shoy Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shangju Padu Dani Chap Suji Dagi Jin Soji Pe Sunam Ji Dola Penje Sanje Drupa Shoy Sanje Chudang Soji Chonam La Shangju Padu Dani Chap Suji Dagi Jin Soji Pe Sunam Ji Dola Penje Sanje Drupa Shoy Semchen Tamje Devadang Deve Judan Dempa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Delwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Tampa Dan Mindalwa Jujik Nyering Chadan Dan Delwe Tonyom Chen Pola Nepa Jujik Semchen Tamje Deva Dan Deve Judang Tempa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judang Delwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Dampa Dang Wajujik Nyering Chadan Dan Delve Tonyom Chempola Nepa Jujik Semchen Tamje Deva Dan Deve Judan Dempa Jujik Dunga Dan Dunga Ji Judan Delwa Jujik Dunga Mepe Deva Tampa Dan Mindalwa Jujik Nyering chadan dan relwe tonyom chempola nepa juji. Oi chasa wadan chujing shakpadang. Jesu yirang kushing solvayi. Kewa chunse dagi chisapa. Tamje dagi shanjub chingo. So, good afternoon, all of you. It's good to see you here. And to all of you who are online, it's very good that you're here. And I hope that today, or at the end of today, you will have a bit more understanding of Tara, the praises to Tara. So people think, or people often ask, like, who is Tara? What's the benefit of reciting these praises to Tara every morning? What's the point? I don't understand it. All these verses. Is Tara real? Does Tara exist? Is Tara a god? Does the pure realm of Tara exist? Where is it? How do I get there? You might not be asking those questions. Of course, you may not. You may or may not. You may have some uncertainty relating to the practice, I assume, because that's why you're here. You want to learn about it, learn about Tara. And that's really good. And so what I hope is that at the end of this afternoon, maybe some of these questions will have been answered. Maybe some of it will be clearer to you. So what I'm planning to do is, we are not going through the whole text of Tara, the whole, sadhana of Tara. What we're doing is the praises to Tara, explanation of who is Tara, what does Tara represent? That's what we're going to look at. So to get a sense of, get some understanding of Tara, and then looking at the praises to Tara. So what I'm planning to do in this afternoon, we'll have 2 sessions with a break in the middle. First session, I will go through some of the, some general introduction to Tara, like looking at these different ideas of Tara. And then we will look at also the 16, I just added 2 more, 16 fears and dangers, or what it says, like Tara liberates from fear and danger, is how Tara is often described, these dangers and fears. What are they? What sort of obstacles does Tara help with? How does the Tara practice help us to overcome these obstacles, and what are they? So we'll look at that in the first session. Second session, we'll actually look at the praises themselves, the 21 praises. So, and hopefully you have the praises there. It doesn't really matter if you don't have them, to be honest, because we're not we won't have time to go into a lot of detail, but sometimes that's also better. If you go into too much detail, it becomes even more complicated. But so that's the plan for today, this afternoon. So to start with, I want to talk to you just a little bit about the text, the sadhana to Tara, which is important. That it's a terma text. It's a terma text that was discovered by Chocho Lingpa. He's one of the most famous Tibetan 19th century Tertons. So terma is a treasure. Ter actually means treasure in Tibetan. Terma means a treasure usually buried by Guru Rinpoche. So Guru Rinpoche, but not only buried, because there are many different termas. There are mind termas, there are earth termas, there are water termas. Treasures of Dharma that Guru Rinpoche protected and sealed. I'm saying sealed in almost like a magical sense, if we can talk about magic. Because in a way we cannot talk about magic when it comes to Dharma, but on another level, until we have understood the nature of mind, there's some kind of magic there. When you think about existence and non-existence and emptiness and everything is like an illusion, well, there's what we say a magician's display. There is a lot of magic in the Dharma, but not in how we normally think of magic, what in the ordinary sense of magic. But termas are a little bit like that, because how could Guru Rinpoche preserve these texts and seal them within a kind of almost like a time capsule, and have tertons appearing later on, centuries later, who were destined to discover these termas, because these termas were destined for certain generations. But so that's a whole area in itself that we can't go into. But the Tara sadhana in itself is a terma. So if you read about the life of Guru Rinpoche, you will get to know more about termas. But the thing about this terma is that it's quite a recent one. It's a 19th century. So the terton was born in 1829. And it was Jamgon Kongtrul the Great and Chocho Lingpa who together formulated this text, formulated the terma and the sadhana of green Tara. So there's a lot of blessing within the text itself. It's not just somebody who sits down and I have an inspiration today, I'm going to write something. Yeah, this sounds good, these words go together, this would be very nice, it rhymes. It doesn't work like that. It is something that arises within the mind of the master as out of their realization. It's not just words, is what I mean, not simply words. So it is also based on what you call the Kriya Tantra and the Anuttara Yoga Tantra together. What that means, the Kriya Tantra, what that means is how we relate to the practice. When anything arises out of the Kriya Tantra, it means that there is not so much emphasis on having to have empowerment, for example. When things are purely Anuttara Yoga Tantras, then we need to have empowerment, we need to have the lung, scripture authorization, and instructions. We always need instructions because otherwise we don't know what we are doing. But for the Kriya Yoga Tantras, there's less emphasis on, it is not like a must that you have to have empowerment. So this Tara can be practiced by anyone. You see that there are some practices like that can be practiced by anyone, so depending on their background. But what is specific for Kriya Yoga Tantra texts and practices is that there's great emphasis on, I don't know what you call it, for one thing, physical cleanliness. Another thing is like eating meat and things, alcohol. Meat and alcohol don't go together with it. So they say when you practice Tara, you should never have either eaten meat or drunk alcohol beforehand. And this was one of the reasons why it was always practiced in the mornings. It's kind of a trick, even we always find tricks, don't we? We always find ways around, because that all the Tibetans eat meat, and they used to eat meat in Tibet, at least they had nothing else. Now, His Holiness Karmapa is recommending vegetarianism to many people. But of course, as a lay person, you're free to, if you want to eat meat, you can eat meat. If you want to drink alcohol, you can drink alcohol. It's not a prohibited thing, it's up to you. But when you practice Tara, it's recommended, there's a certain focus on purity, physical cleanliness, and no meat, no alcohol. This is part of it. So then normally you would have a shrine whenever you do Tara. You would have, like always when you do these practices, you have you try to have a shrine where you have an image of the deity, if you can. I mean, it's not a must, it's not essential, But when you do a practice regularly, you should try and have some representation of that deity on your shrine, and you can also place offerings in front of the image is also good. But the thing is that, so the Tara text, the whole Tara Sadhana, what it consists of, is a whole series of praises and offerings, or maybe I should say offerings and praises and offerings and praises and offerings and praises, more and more and more. So the 21 praises to Tara, it's actually like the main part of the practice. It's almost like the mantra, even though Tara has its own mantra, Om Tare Tu De Soha, the 10-syllable mantra, that is the mantra, but the praises are practiced similarly to the mantra. But, more or less the text is like that, just continuous praises and offerings, praises and offerings. So for that reason, always when you do the Tara Sadhana, you do have offerings on your shrine. But then in terms of the praises, how the praises are also used is you can recite them just on their own, and that's very, very common. You recite them on their own, just the 21 praises, and you leave out the first verse actually, because that's not part of the praises. And then they're called a dokpa. So very often it would be recited as a dokpa, a way of turning away obstacles, because this is the essence of Tara's activity, is overcoming obstacles, fears, harm, danger. So when like all these translations can be used for that. What is Tara? When you talk about these 16 fears or dangers, it's often translated as fears, but it is both internal and external, and it is like obstacle. All of it can cover fear, obstacle, harm, danger, in all its different aspects. So Tibetans, all the different lineages, they practice Tara, Geluk, Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma. All of them do the Tara practice. And all of them recite the praises to Tara. And I would think most Tibetans, they know them by heart. They know the praises by heart. And they just chant them, when they're out, when they're looking after their sheep or their yak, to protect their yak and their sheep. It's a protection against thieves. And when they're driving on those high mountain roads, there are many accidents there, but it is a very common practice that is very familiar to, I would say, to all Tibetans, in the same way as Chenrezi and the 6-syllable mantra is. These are maybe the main practices, Chenrezi and Tara. So I think it would be wonderful if we could all learn this by heart. Do you think you can all learn this by heart? This would be so nice. Not so long ago, His Holiness Karmapa was giving a teaching online. Maybe it was last year, and he mentioned the Samye Dzong in Congo. That he was very impressed by them. They were also there on Zoom, because they all chanted the praises by heart and very well in Tibetan. They didn't even need a text, and even the little children chanted it. So he was, and then after he mentioned them, you could see on their social media, like they had so many Tibetans commenting and people commenting and being so impressed. But it was very nice to see, actually. So it's wonderful when that happens, and many people chant it together. When we chant together, there's a certain strength and power to it. We felt that here on Thursday when we had prayers for the Karmapa's birthday. Many voices together chanting, it gives such an energy, and it's so uplifting and gives strength. And we all support each other in practice. It also says you get the same merit of everybody. Each one in a group practice, when you do group practice, okay, I have the merit of my own focus and whatever I am managing to do, but I also have the merit of everyone else in the room, because we're like one body practicing together. So there's a lot of strength in group practice. So it's worth remembering that. Maybe that's one reason why it's very good to come to the center, to practice together and not to stay not to stay online unless you have to. Unless you have to, please come. Manifest in this room, please. I think there's a certain reluctance to come out again after COVID. And understandably so, many people are now getting ill again. But of course, now that we're open, we would like people to come to the center. And I think people do focus better when they are in the center together as a group rather than sitting in front of a computer. But I do know that many of the people who are online here, they are in other countries and they are not really necessarily able to come. So that is okay. Right, so we better actually start in more detail of the explanation. So that's just a bit about the text, okay? And to say that it was practiced by all the great masters, they all relied on Tara, everyone. And the way Tara is seen is, Tara is a female Buddha, Tara is a Buddha. Tara, like all the realization of all the Buddhas is the same. Doesn't matter what form they take. When a Buddha becomes a Buddha, that is the realization of the nature of mind, the nature of phenomena, of non-duality, wisdom and compassion and power embodied. So they're all the same in terms of their level of realization. That doesn't differ. There's no difference in their level of realization, but there's a difference in their focus and in their commitment. So it says that all these Buddhas, like you know about Sakyamuni Buddha, took like 500 lives of meritorious activities until he became a Buddha, as Sakyamuni Buddha. And so he was a bodhisattva, a great bodhisattva with vast activity. But during that whole period of time, those great bodhisattvas had commitments and aspirations and dedications, and they all had different aspirations and different focus. So Tara's focus was, I want to liberate all beings. I want to be swiftly there, like this swift activity to protect beings from harm. This is the focus. Like you have. So at the level of bodhisattva, you know, when we have Dodja Sempa, we have who's mostly purification, we have medicine Buddha, we have white Tara, that is long life and good health, we have Chenrezig of compassion. So at the level of, say, a 10th level bodhisattva, before Buddhahood, their aspiration would be so powerful, because it's a very, very high level of realization. And those aspirations would mean they would manifest as Buddhas with, you could almost say like specializing. The Buddhas were specializing in different activities, even though they all have compassion, they all have understanding of emptiness, wisdom, and they all have power, limitless qualities, but they have different focus. So that is where you say, although their level of realization is the same, their aspirations while they were on the path were different. And Tara's aspirations and commitments were this swift accomplishment to overcome obstacles. And this means both like in terms of worldly obstacles, spiritual obstacles, any type of obstacles. And so if we think of like what is Tara, how do we relate to Tara? Because we think, yes, Buddhism does not have a God out there that we pray to. We are supposed to look at the nature of our own mind, look inside. So how can we understand Tara? So one way is this: we think of Tara as a female Buddha and as the embodiment of wisdom. So the way you can explain, like in terms of the Buddha, I said, you talk about the 5 Buddha families as well. The 5 Buddha families are the transformation of the 5 negative emotions. As long as we are within samsara, we are under the sway of these 5 negative emotions. So when they're purified, they become the 5 wisdoms, and the 5 Buddhas embody these 5 wisdoms. And it's said that these 5 male Buddhas represent the 5 skandhas, skandhas of our, our form, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. Sort of like what we are made up of, and what makes us human beings, how we experience samsara through the 5 skandhas. And the 5 female Buddhas is their consorts, and they are the 5 elements. They represent the 5 elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. So when you think of them as in that way, Tara is the consort of Amoghasiddhi, who is the transformation of jealousy, but also who represents fearlessness. Because this is also, like Tara, this swift activity to overcome danger is the manifestation of fearlessness, courage, this ability to, Superman, jump in and sort it all out. So, in that sense, yes, Tara is a female Buddha. Tara is a consort of Amoghasiddhi. Tara is the embodiment of wisdom. So Tara is also the mother, seen as the mother of all the Buddhas, because all the Buddhas become Buddhas through wisdom. So in a way you could say they are born by wisdom. Without wisdom there would not be a Buddha. So you say, from that point of view, you say Tara is the mother of all the... In fact, all the female deities are embodiments, are focused more on wisdom, and the males on skillful means. And then, in terms of Tara, of course, we know Sakyamuni Buddha as a human being 2,500 years ago, born in India, born to a mother and a father, and seemingly almost a normal person, right? There's a life story, there's a history, you can see all the life of the Buddha. He was a prince, and he became a monk, and he renounced the world, and there are teachings from the mouth of the Buddha. So what we say about the Buddha in this form is what you call the Nirmanakaya. The Nirmanakaya is this aspect of realization that we can relate to in a physical form. We can directly relate to someone like the Buddha. We can relate to like an ordinary human being who can teach us. So it's like a flesh and blood, like a historical figure, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, like other great beings that we can relate to. Whether they are Buddhas or not, we cannot tell. But they are what you would call Nirmanakaya manifestations. Whereas green Tara, yes, we would not meet someone looking like green Tara today or 2,500 years ago, because Tara is green in color. Many of the other deities, the 5 Buddha families, have other colors, blue, red, white, etc. So they are what you call the Sambhogakaya. They are like the light form, manifesting in a light form. It's like a more refined aspect, you could say, because we are not able to really communicate with green Tara. Even though it is said that some people did get messages from green Tara. Said that Tisha had a statue that spoke of green Tara. And it said that there is in Dege in Tibet, there is a painting that spoke and gave a warning about a fire that was going to happen. So there's said to be some communication, but we don't know for sure. But so the Sambhogakaya aspect is a light body, you could say, light body that is manifesting in the pure realms. So Sambhogakaya, Tara is a Sambhogakaya form of the Buddha's mind, of the enlightened mind. You talk about Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Niyamanakaya. Dharmakaya is the nature of the enlightened mind. So you have in Tibetan Buddhism these different representations, and the Sambhogakaya, you will see they always look similar. They might vary in form. They might, like Chenrezig is a Sambhogakaya, white in color but has 4 arms. Obviously not an appearance that we would meet today. So it is a Sambhogakaya. It is that aspect that it says only 10th level bodhisattvas would be able to they would appear. They would be able to see them, or to how they would be perceived, how a Buddha would be perceived by great 10th level bodhisattvas would be in this more subtle light form. So you talk about these 3 different levels, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Niyamanakaya, and that way Tara, Sambhogakaya, and they all look the same. They have the same ornaments, same kind of they're very precise actually. Their crown ornament, their earrings, all of the ways they're portrayed are the same, and they just represent all the qualities of Tara, which is this quality of fearlessness. But so for us, what I think is more important, a better way, more important and direct way to relate to Tara is that Tara is an example and a principle of fearlessness, of this quality of the enlightened mind and of our own potential. So Tara is manifestation of our own potential, and a symbol of enlightened activity, symbol of fearlessness, a symbol of all the enlightened qualities and wisdom. So you have many different Taras, and you should so you have these 21 different Taras, and you should know that they're all in essence they're the same. They're all one, but they have different appearances, and they have different, again, emphasis. So white Tara is connected with long life, health, vitality. Yellow Tara is with increasing activity, so white Tara is like peaceful activity. Yellow Tara, increasing activity, so increasing all the good qualities, wealth and expansion of merit, intelligence. Red Tara represents magnetizing quality, so again you talk about these 4 activities. So attracting good qualities on the path. And then the wrathful Tara is represents wrathful overcoming of obstacles, sort of like wrathful compassion. And then green Tara is seen as a union of all of them, because the color of green comes through mixing various colors. So green represents all of the different Taras in one. But what I would like to say is that when we do, so there are sadhanas for, like what we are familiar with here is the green Tara sadhana. But, and possibly you're also familiar with white Tara sadhana. But there are also sadhanas for red Tara and for some of the other Taras. But they are less common. I'm not familiar with the others, only with white and green Tara. So when we do the green Tara, we think of green Tara with all the different manifestations, and they have nothing to do directly with the sadhana, for example, of white Tara or red Tara or the others, because they are relying on those sadhanas, on the different texts. So here we just think of them as, in essence, all these 21 Taras are the same, they're one in essence. And then when we practice white Tara, then we practice it relating to that sadhana as it comes. And then we don't think about the 21 taras. Then we just think of white tara on its own as it comes, yeah. So we should think of green tara as this activity, swift activity and accomplishment. Because also tara's green color represents the air element. I said, about the 5 elements. So it represents the air element. The air element represents movement, growth. In nature, when things grow, you plant a seed and it grows. It's the movement, and that's the air element. So tara represents the air element and movement, swift activity, forward, like of course on our path. And it's the swift activity of connecting us up to our own essence. So we can say that her nature is the ultimate, the Buddha nature. Her nature is a Buddha nature, and it's ultimately it's beyond any reference point. Ultimately, tara is beyond color, beyond form. So when we say, this is how the great Bodhisattvas see green tara, we tend to think of it as very solid, but then we have to remember that a 10th level Bodhisattva would be beyond duality, beyond reference point, beyond concept. So it would not be, me and green tara and green tara appearing as such, like with a solidly conceptualizing the appearance of tara as something separate. So we have to remember that this ultimately tara is beyond reference point. And he's the embodiment of our own Buddha nature. So when we are calling out to tara, when we are praising tara, we are calling out to our own pure nature, our own Buddha nature. This potential that we have within for perfection, for fearlessness, for courage, for swift activity, for Buddha activity within us. So it's calling out to that when we recite praises to tara, and when you do the whole sadhana, then you actually imagine yourself as embodying green tara. You think that you are green tara, but we can't go into that. But so when you say devotion to green tara, it means devotion to that goal of wisdom, devotion to that goal of fearlessness, of the bodhisattva ideal, of courage, of benefiting others. So all the things that we are familiar with in Buddhism, this is what tara represents. And when we praise tara, we are praising that, and we are calling out those qualities and reminding ourselves of those qualities within ourselves. So we'll now look a bit more about obstacles. So what does it mean? Like what obstacles? What do we call obstacles? When we're saying tara is freeing us from harm and obstacles and fear. So generally you talk about the outer, inner and secret obstacles. None of it is really secret, none of it is very, 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 very familiar to us. I think all of it is very, very familiar to us. So outer obstacles is simply like the elements, what we generally call the obstacles of the impediments. In Tibetan it's called barche. So again, the obstacles: fire, water, earth, air. We have hurricanes, we have earthquakes, we have floods, we have fires that cause a lot of destruction. It can cause a lot of destruction of our external environment and of living beings. Human beings, animals, all living beings. So this is obstacles. This is what we are very, very, there's nothing strange about that. We know that as obstacles. And of course there is all sorts of obstacles when all of that come in very different combinations. Fire can also come in the form of war and guns and bombs and all of that. So any way that these four elements come together to manifest as obstacles and harm, this is the outer obstacles. And inner obstacles, we talk about, this may be a bit more unfamiliar, that we say in some of the texts in Tibetan Buddhism, they talk about the subtle body, and says that how from the moment we are born, we have the coarser body, our very familiar coarser body, and then we have a subtle, finer, inner body that is so subtle that it's not like we cannot find it. We cannot sort of slice through anywhere and look through a microscope and say, oh yes, this is where the finer channels are, this is where. So it talks about the 72,000 channels that are pervading our body from the moment we are born. And through these channels, the wind like lung, circulates. And it says that mind, consciousness rides on this wind. And we say mind, yeah, because we cannot find mind anymore. We think mind is in the brain, mind is in the heart, where's the mind? And when we look through the very coarse body, of course we know that it's not there. We can look through the coarse body. We know that now we can do heart transplants. We don't have the mind of that other person. We cannot yet do brain transplants. So we cannot say for sure. But we know that if we slice through the brain, it's made of lots of water, lots of fat, not much else, I think. And it can regrow, and to amazing qualities. You might have half a brain. I've seen some program of somebody who had a half a brain. They can regrow their brain. But we cannot find that sense of who I am, what we call mind, or I, myself, anywhere. So it's said, like in those more teachings on the subtle body, it talks about the mind actually rides on this wind within the 72,000 channels. From the moment we are born, they also start to degenerate, even from the moment we're born. And there's actually quite detailed teachings on these winds, and how, if we practice a lot, these winds become more, and channels become more subtle and more straight, and the mind can sort of, it's like this whole thing of training the mind goes together with this, it affects the subtle body, and vice versa. But so, when this wind energy is balanced, then there is harmony, physical, mental harmony, mind and body, because we also know mind and body affects each other, right? Medical profession knows that. If we have liver problem, we become irritable, we become very, if we have kidney problems, we become very nervous and anxious, or various things like that. I don't know all of them, but certain things like that. We see how mind and body, we get sleepy, or we lie down, our posture affects our sleepiness, our straight body, and meditation is important to keep a clear mind. So mind and body are very, very interrelated. And so these inner obstacles is when there is imbalance in the channels and the winds and the movements. It's an imbalance. And this is also how, if you think about Tibetan medicine, there are thick volumes on Tibetan medicine. It is so fascinating what has been known for centuries and centuries. When you look at these big books with drawings of the body, and so the Tibetan medicine works on balancing the various elements in the body, mentally balancing, physically balancing. It doesn't really talk so much about this kind of sickness or that kind of sickness, or naming all the sickness. It's just more about finding this inner balance. So, of course, if they're out of balance, we become unhealthy, and we become sick, and then when we become sick, then that gives other obstacles. sickness is generally seen as an obstacle, right? And so then secret obstacles is maybe the most serious of all of them, because we can deal with sickness, we can deal with outer obstacles, physical obstacles, but inner obstacles is our main obstacle, and this is the thoughts, the concepts, the confusion, all of the pleasures is generally like clinging to, our clinging is based on ignorance, attachment, aversion. It is all based on ignorance. Out of ignorance arises attachment and aversion. And all out of this our dualistic clinging comes the whole range of our concepts, thoughts and emotions, and our confusion and our suffering that arises out of that. So this is what you call secret. The secret obstacles, all our problems, all of our sufferings are based on these concepts and thoughts. That is how subtle, much more subtle. Our ignorance is very, very subtle, isn't it? Because if not, we would surely have fixed it by now. If not, it would not take us years and years and years of study and practice to sort ourselves out. But we know from experience that it's not so easy to tame our mind. So it is is a lot of fine-tuning we need to do, a lot of purification we need to do. So we say the Buddha, what it means to become a Buddha is Sang to purify and Je to grow or to expand. Like all the qualities have to expand and grow, and all the negativities have to be purified. And we haven't even seen everything that we need to purify because we are not aware of everything. We're not aware of all our past karma, obstacles. Also, often we are not really aware of our potential. We don't really have confidence in our own abilities, in our own potential and in our own qualities. So both ways we need to think about them and cultivate the positive and purify the negative. That is the path to Buddhahood. That is what Samye means. So when we practice Tara, then we're looking at all these different obstacles. So where it says Tara, Tara protects us, Tara frees us from fear. So Tara, you could say also, is the embodiment of the three jewels. We say, what is Tara? How can Tara protect us? Tara is Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, like the three jewels gathered into one. And it means that we free our mind through study. We free our mind through the Dharma. We free our mind through practice. We free our mind through contemplation. Unfortunately, there is no swift, quick, like fix. Tara does not work like that. That we just, Tara, come, please help me. Yes. If the Buddhas could, they would come and do the work for us. But they cannot. This is what we know right from the start. The Buddha has said that I can only show you the path. You have to walk the path yourself. From where you're at now, I can show you the path, I can point the way. Here you go, there's all these different signs, because that is what the Dharma is. The Dharma is signposts. Actually signposts, this way to look at my own mind. But in terms of a path, yes, we see the path as here, and there is a goal. And we have to get to that end goal, but we need the teachings for that, we need the path, and we need the contemplation and the practice. So in that sense, Tara points us in that direction. By doing the Tara practice, we are applying the Dharma. Tara is the Dharma. Tara is Buddha. Tara is the path. Tara is also even like the essence, like bliss and emptiness, a realization of the path. So again, when you invoke Tara, you are then calling on your own inner potential, your own wisdom that is there already. But because we cannot easily connect with that, we have to have a technique as well. So these 16 fears, or dangers, they are 8 external, 8 internal. And it's mostly the internal that makes sense to that is important, because the external is more like a symbol. So the first of these, let's look at these 16 fears. I'll have to go a little bit quickly. So first one is the lion of pride. Lion of pride. So it's like saying pride is like a lion. Pride is dangerous like a lion, because we are not afraid of external lions, but we should be afraid of the power of pride to cause us harm. Because it's like a lion. It's very strong and very forceful and can cause a lot of harm too. So this means arrogance, pride, or thinking we're better than others. I mean, we haven't really understood what Buddha nature means, because Buddha nature is equal in all sentient beings. We're all equal, equally perfect in terms of potential. Not everyone has reached the same level, but our potential is the same. Then causes and conditions come together that help us to develop this potential. So when we are arrogant and when we are proud, then that means we think we are more than others, for whatever reason, because we have a lot of money, or because of our education, or because of how we grew up, or whatever we think is better than others, or the way we look, or our youth, or our experience, our knowledge. That is what we call pride. And in terms of sort of an example of pride, there's this little story that tells of a rabbit and a lion, where it's like a Tibetan story that to describe how pride works, and the rabbit, I suppose, is trying to trick the lion, and he tells the lion, "Oh, there are some much more, I've seen a much more magnificent creature than you. You are nothing really. You are just, compared to that other one, you are nothing." And so the lion becomes very agitated and wants to see that other creature, and the rabbit takes him to a well. Say, "Look down there, look at that person down there." And so there's this continuous, like the lion is kind of growling, and the reflection down there is growling back and growling at each other, and get more and more puffed up, and eventually attacks, and of course falls into the well, and that's the end of the story. But it's showing how through arrogance and pride there's a downfall. We come to a downfall. We can only fall down, because with pride you are up here and everyone else is down there. That's arrogance. So it leads to our own downfall, and of course both in worldly sense and spiritual sense it's the same. It is a very harmful pleasure. It's a very harmful affliction, defilement. And generally, yes, we should recognize Buddha nature. We should think about the sameness of all things. We should realize no self and emptiness. Of course, if we could do that, then if we had this understanding of non-duality, there would be no pride. But that is a very difficult realization to come to. So the easier path is to contemplate how everything, how interconnectedness, how everything we have, everything we do, everything we know, it comes from someone else. How we depend on each other. Interconnectedness. All of us as human beings, we depend on each other. Everything we have, everything we know, everything we have learned, even things we have earned, and we tend to think this is through my own effort. It was not fully through our own effort. It was through our teachers, through our sponsors, or our parents, or our friends, or those people who learned it before us and who passed it on to us, or those people we bought it from, and then someone else who made it, who sold it, and etc. So there is no limit to how we can contemplate this and recognize our interdependentness. So when we recite the praises to Tara, when we call on Tara, we are calling on this, our inner wisdom, that is the opposite of pride. It's like calling on Tara, calling on our own inner wisdom to protect us from pride, you could say. May I not become this awful, arrogant, proud person who's so blind to my own faults and who thinks I'm better than everyone else, and etc., etc. That's what we are saying. When you recite these praises, we have to think like that. You're calling out to Tara, your own inner, to protect you from your own. You're calling out to your own wisdom. May my own wisdom grow so that I do not fall into the traps of the defilements. So the next one of these is the elephant of ignorance. So the external is the elephant, internal is ignorance. This is a very strong, our ignorance on lack of awareness of the way things are. So elephants are very, we tend to think they're very, very nice and peaceful, aren't they? I think a lot of times they are. But they can also be very dangerous. They can be very, very dangerous. They can attack you if you encounter them at the wrong moment. They're very powerful, of course. So a mad elephant. And they can eat all your crops. If you have a field of things, they will trample it all and destroy it all. So it's that idea. It's not saying elephants are bad. It's not saying lions are bad. But this represents ignorance, and so ignorance is a cause of so much damage. Trampling the fields of crops, trampling everything that we have nurtured, everything that we have grown, everything we have tried to collect together through the defilements. And all the different defilements are based on ignorance. So ignorance is the root defilement. Based on ignorance you have anger, you have attachment, you have jealousy, pride, all the rest of them. So it's really like a very, very powerful defilement. And so we say everything that we try to build up can be destroyed. That's why it is powerful. Elephant is used as a symbol. When we're overwhelmed by the defilements, then of course more problems come. Unethical behavior arise out of the defilements, out of anger, out of selfishness, the rest. So meaning that we cause more suffering, we cause more negativity. And so here the remedy is like mindfulness, vigilance, clarity. If we don't have clarity and mindfulness and vigilance, then we develop strong attachment and aversion based on ignorance and all the other emotions. And so when we do these praises to Tara, we call out to our own powers of mindfulness and vigilance to subdue this wild elephant with the piercing tusks of our own ignorance, all this damage we do to ourselves, all of the pain and suffering we have due to our own reactions, so due to our own lack of mindfulness and vigilance. So we should commit ourselves to strengthen our mindfulness. Then the third one is the fire of anger. So anger is compared to fire, like a forest fire. So fire, it's like anger, you say, it's like it magnifies everything. Everything becomes out of control. When we are angry, it could be like a small thing, isn't it? A very small thing, and it gets us into. When in fact, when we calm down again, we thought actually it wasn't really. I wish I hadn't reacted like that, because it's really actually, when I have my perspective back, I can see that it's not such a big deal. But at that moment it felt like a big deal, and everything becomes a big deal, and it's like a big explosion and a big fire, and everything catches fire. When we have fire, then everything catches fire, everything is flammable, and it means, again, damage, like so much damage. So much, all this, all of our crops again burn, all of the by crops I mean all of our relationships, of course, especially when we say, when we lose our temper, we hurt other people. We hurt our friends, we hurt our family, we hurt those who are close to us, we hurt whoever is in our path. So anger is very, very damaging, just like a forest fire, or like any fire that we know about. And there's a lot of smoke, and when there's a lot of smoke, we cannot see how did it start? Where should we aim the hose to put it out? We get blind. It means that anger blinds us. So this is a big danger, big harm. Patience is the antidote. So we call on Tara, we call on this, our power and ability and our patience and our wisdom to not allow us to get carried away by anger. Then we talk about the snake of jealousy. So jealousy is like also very poisonous. We cannot bear when we see others are doing better than us, others have more than us, others are happier than us, others have more opportunities, more friends, whatever there is. It's like we want to, we feel like it's not fair. You say like jealousy is like we feel justified when we're jealous. It's like a justified anger. But it isn't really justified, but that's how we explain it to ourselves. They should not have had the promotion. It was my turn. They should not have been first in the queue. I have been waiting for hours or whatever. You know, that kind of mentality of always feeling that it's not fair and everybody else should get out of the way so I can get to the front and I can get what I want. It's that sort of competition. We can't bear it when we see others being happy, and that's of course not really in harmony with our bodhisattva motivation that we're trying to develop, saying we want to practice and pray and meditate for the benefit of all sentient beings. At least we're trying. It's good that we are trying, and of course we are not there yet, but jealousy is very much the opposite. So we should rejoice. Rejoicing is we should be aware of this, and we should call on Tara to protect us from the harm of this snake of jealousy. Next one is the thieves of distorted views. So we should guard our views of the Dharma. We should be very careful that we don't mix things up and get carried away with Dharma and sort of on our spiritual path. The views of Dharma, to have to sort of understanding, have right understanding of Dharma is the foundation for our path. It's very, very important. We don't get confused or get wrong ideas. Don't get mixed up, like what is right and what is wrong, and in terms of karma, cause and effect, or do things, karma, cause and effect in terms of what is right and what we can do and what we cannot do. Sometimes even that is it's seemingly simple, but it can be quite complicated. What is the right action in this situation? We should try to develop more clarity and understanding of the Dharma. So we should study more. We should study. Like, of course, traditionally in Buddhism, there's a debate, and in the monasteries they would debate, they would sort of contemplate and work through the Dharma. It's like you're kneading the dough and come to maybe some deeper understanding of some of the questions in Buddhism, like understanding of the relative and ultimate, and understanding of the existence or non-existence, in terms of you say to be free from these, or you talk about eternalism and nihilism. Eternalism is this belief that things exist independently of their own accord. So that means that they're permanent. if we think that things truly, we believe that they're real, eternalism, or we believe that there's nothing at all, it's a nihilism, that nothing exists. Whereas we say the middle way view of Buddhism is that things appear due to causes and conditions. Things do appear, but they have no solid, independent existence of their own accord. They just appear due to causes and conditions, and they're like an illusion. They are like a rainbow in the sky. They're like a bubble on the water. They're like mist, like a magician's display. So we should beware of this wrong views, and again call out to Tara and to protect us from wrong views, and to develop the wisdom to understand Dharma deeply, to study. Then we talk about the chain of miserliness. Miserliness, like craving, stinginess, craving, holding on. So, which is often based on fear, like we have to have something. Maybe like could be in any. It could take any kind of form. Maybe it's like as an example, but here's it's compared to a chain. It means that we are like a prisoner. Because miserliness imprisons us if we are caught up in holding on very strongly to things. Like, say for example, someone who has experienced maybe like a World War I or World War II, and then great rationing and being in a place where there was no food at all. Or I don't know if you've ever seen that film called The Life of Pi. That was an amazing film where he was out on a boat caught in a boat with a tiger, actually. A really amazing film if you haven't seen it, The Life of Pi. And I can tell you that I went to see that film together with Akon Rinpoche. There was just myself and Akon Rinpoche and Chico, who made the film about Akon. There were just the three of us in the movie theater. For some reason, only three of us went. Well, two of us went together with Rinpoche. It's the only time I have seen Rinpoche watching a film and he did not fall asleep. Normally I think he's just kind of like, he's not too interested. This he was really interested straight to. It's such a spiritual film. It's such a film about overcoming obstacles, and you really should watch it actually. But how did we get to that? Life of Pi. I don't remember now, but in any case, being a prisoner is like miserliness. Yes, so there was this example of, say, when people. So what happened in that film is that when at the end of the film, because he was on this boat for months and months and months with nothing to eat except he caught a few fish here and there, and when he finally finds land and he's being interviewed, it's like it shows him how he's stocking up his storeroom, and he has to have so much food. His storeroom is packed full of food out of this fear of having this experience, like I mentioned, if you've gone through poverty, if you have gone through a world war with rations, you have experienced that hunger of having no food. So when you can, you, like a squirrel, you squirrel it away and you store it. That's what it showed in that film. And it's a kind of imprisonment, mental imprisonment, and it's based on fear. We worry about what can happen in the future. We have experienced some great suffering and we worried about it happening again. So this miserliness is very much based around like craving and craving maybe for possessions, like feeling a sense of need for security, for outer security. and of course, like generosity, antidote, contentment. We need to develop contentment, inner contentment, and generosity, and so here, like bodhicitta and Tara's commitment to help all beings. So we need to call on Tara to develop this fearlessness. So we're not a prisoner of miserliness, and we can have contentment. Then the last one, so we're almost there now, we're going a little bit over time, is the flood of attachment. So the external is a flood, the inner is attachment. It's kind of similar to the miserliness, but attachment, holding on, where we, due to all these obstacles or defilements, we act in harmful ways. And that causes suffering. It's like a flood causes suffering. We have lots of external experiences of the damage of floods. I mean, actually, here in the center, we haven't got directly floods, but we have had a lot of leaks recently. In the back of the shrine room, in our kitchen, our coffee machine, in the tea room, we have had lots of water issues. It causes a lot of damage. You cannot really control water, can you? It has that all-pervasive quality of movement, and you can't contain it. So that's how attachment is compared to water, and it sweeps you with it. You get swept away with attachment. You drown in attachment. It's that image of when we have very strong attachment. Then, of course, there are all different levels in these defilements. When you have very strong attachment, like your head goes under, and you cannot breathe. You cannot. It says like it's comparing the breathing the fresh air. It's like we cannot get our head above the attachment and breathe the air. That's what Dharma is, the fresh air, like spaciousness of the mind. And the Dharma is like a life raft. Dharma itself, on a spiritual path. So we should, of course, try and study the Dharma, practice the Dharma, and then again call out to Tara to protect us from this danger of the defilement of attachment, from this flood of attachment, because it sweeps us away. So these are, I think that's the end. Oh no, there's one more. Again, it seems like such a lot. Maybe there was more than 16? Did we come more than 16? Last one is the demon of doubt. Doubt is the last one. So here we call out to Tara to protect us from doubt. And doubt, of course, can be seen as, we can have both negative and positive doubt. Doubt can be positive. We know the Buddha encouraged us to question things. The Buddha encouraged us to examine and to observe and to analyze. He said, look at my teachings. Don't just have faith because I say so. You should analyze and look for yourself. Observe your own mind. Is it true what I'm saying? Like in Buddhism, you're not really encouraged to a blind faith, but a faith that arises out of your own experience and your own recognition and understanding. So this kind of positive faith is a good thing. But when we say doubt, the demon of doubt, it means when we are paralyzed by doubt. We are disempowered by doubt, because it means we cannot make decisions. We are like, is it this way or is it that way, or should I do this or should I do that, or is it like, is that good or is that bad, or is that right or is that wrong? Where we are in our way of thinking, which then translates into our actions. Should I meditate? Should I not? No, I cannot. No, I have to do this instead. Or in very simple ways it can express itself, but also in terms of deeper engagement with the Dharma. It will hinder our path if we have overwhelming doubt that stops us from engaging. Like if we are standing at, maybe like with the Dharma, it's like we're learning, right? We're learning to become swimmers in the ocean of life. We are learning to become swimmers in the ocean of samsara. We have to learn to dive in and engage and make the most out of our life. But if we're standing on the edge of that, maybe like a cliff, and down there is the ocean, and we can't get ourselves to jump in. Never mind if we jump in a beautiful Olympic style, or we jump in feet first, doesn't really matter too much. We splash, we make a big splash, doesn't matter, but we have to jump, we have to get in there. We cannot just hold back and say, oh, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, because nothing will get nowhere. And that's where doubt becomes like a disempowering. So that's the demon of doubt. It says like our mind is like, we become very confused. Our mind is always spinning, and we cannot come to any conclusion. So we are lacking clarity. It's actually a lack of clarity. Lots and lots of thoughts. What we need when we have lots and lots of thoughts like that is we need simply to meditate and to develop clarity, to focus, study, practice, meditate, to develop clarity, think clearly. So in terms of when we do, so that's the end of the 16 dangers and harms and fears. And so what we need to do then, when we chant the taras, we should visualize tara in front. We can do it very simply, but we have to have that understanding of, like I would say, this what I've explained to you now, I feel is more important than verse by verse explanation of the praises. Because when we chant the praises, it's like reciting a mantra. That's why everybody learns them by heart. So that you can simply just, like when you don't chant it with a tune, it rolls off your tongue like very, very fast. You can hardly, I remember the very first time that I was joining a Tara puja chanted by some Tibetans in Samye. I was new to it. I couldn't even flip my pages fast. It was so fast. So here now we chant it every morning, but now we chant it with a tune, so that the Kamapa's tune, so it's slow and everybody can join it. It doesn't have to be fast, but that's how it's commonly practiced, is very fast chanting, just like rolling off your tongue like a mantra, and then you can focus on the meaning and calling out to Tara, and you can just simply visualize Tara in front, and you can visualize like from Tara's heart, the green light is radiating towards you, and you can think it purifies all obstacles, it fills your body and mind, it frees you from all these harms and dangers and fears that we've just, all these outer, inner, secret obstacles. If you feel you have specific obstacles, you can think of those, that this light is specifically oh, I'm feeling like I'm sick, or I'm depressed, or I am anxious, or you can think of others around you, all sentient beings with you, and it radiates to them as well and frees them from suffering. You can think simply like that, having that presence of Tara and the understanding of what Tara means. Now when you do the sadhana, there are different ways of visualizing, like at one point it's simply Tara in front, lights radiating, then her mudra changes and it's like the mudra protection, and light radiates from her hand, and then at some point from her toe, it's like you think that her toe, Amrita flows from her toe, and it's almost like when you have these bumpas with a long thin spout that is used in empowerments, then it pours a very thin stream of Amrita, and so it pours from her right toe straight into the crown of your head and fills you up like a blessing. All of these visualizations, you can do them. But of course, if you're busy reading, you won't be able to visualize very much, which is also okay, because then you just call out with a feeling and with that understanding of what Tara is and what, what am I asking for? Please help me, what I forgot, what was it I was asking for? Like, don't think like that, but have a real sense of your own calling out, because that is that's what we're doing on the path. We want to accomplish the qualities and the fearlessness and the ability of Tara and of all the Buddhas. So we have to awaken that, also that calling, that wanting to call, and that recognition that this is what we're doing on that path. So I think that's about the obstacles. And then we'll do the dedication. I will have a break, and then we come back, and then we'll look at the praises. So we could have done with more time, but I think it'll be okay. Sanam de tam je zepane tom ne nye pedanam pam je ne Jega na je balab trupaye sepe sole dowa dolwa sho Sangjo semjo rempoje mache panam je jojik che pa nyam pa me padang Kone gondo pelwasho. Dage chiwo pende den chola, kaden chempa gone jesonde, kusondo jingadu sadu son. So now we have established that Tara is the expression of our own mind and manifestation of the three jewels and of our root guru. If you think you have a root guru, if you think you have a guru of all your teachers gathered into one, Tara is all these things, and you simply are aware of her qualities, generate a motivation to develop the same qualities as Tara. And then you recite, and so visualize her, and you can visualize the lights. And then you direct the prayers, the praises to her, calling out to Tara to protect us from all these different obstacles. So then we recite the praises. So it starts by saying, Om Jetsunma Pamadromala Chatsa Lo. I pay homage to Arya Tara. I pay homage to Jetsunma Arya Tara. So of course there are different translations of the praises, but that doesn't matter too much. But it's that saying you're paying homage to the noble one, the noble Tara. It's straightforward, isn't it? It's simple. So we will have to probably race through these a little bit. So we're paying homage to her as the mother of all the Buddhas. She's like a Buddha. She's all these things that we mentioned before. So we're kind of taking refuge in her and praising her with reference to all her many different aspects. So Chatsadroma Nyoma Pamo. So the first verse is Chatsadroma Nyoma Pamo. So like I said, when we recited just the praises, you skip the first verse, which because it's not part of the 21 Taras. And this is where it says, like in the translation I have here, homage to you, Tara, the swift heroine whose eyes are like the instant flash of lightning, whose water-born face arises from the blooming lotus of Avalokitesvara, protector of the three worlds. So this refers to the legend of how Tara appeared. There's a legend of Tara being connected to Chenrezig, Avalokitesvara. And this is a legend that is quite always explained in relation to Tara, where it says that Chenrezig, who is the deity of compassion, the embodiment of compassion, who, a great bodhisattva, has been working for the benefit of all beings for eons and eons, and at a certain point, Chenrezig must have had a little bit of doubt, a little bit of second thoughts, because he's thinking, how many are left? I've done this for so long now. I've been working for the benefit of sentient beings. How many still to come? How many still to go? And this is how Situ Rinpoche explains it. I think you hear slightly different versions of this story, but it's the same idea of this connection with Chenrezig and Tara. And so when Chenrezig looks and tries to observe, he sees there are limitless beings still left. And so he gets discouraged. He feels a little bit discouraged. And this is what it says that then when he... I want to tell you a short story though, so I better just say very, very short, is that first he becomes discouraged, but then he continues working for the sentient beings, and then a second time he looks again, and where he has this understanding of what it means, limitless sentient beings, is limitless. There is no end to limitless. So, at that moment when he looks, great compassion wells up in him, and tears flow down his cheeks. And it says, somewhere it says, Tara, green Tara appeared from one tear, and white Tara appeared from another. Some other place it says, they fell on the ground, and a lotus started growing, and within that lotus appeared in one green Tara and in the other white Tara. And green Tara sprang to action, saying, I'm here to help. I want to help. I want to do what I can to support your activity. I'm here. Don't be discouraged. I'm here. I will always be here. I will always be here with my commitment, my dedication. It is unshakable. And then white Tara also appeared, and she has a commitment of wanting to help, not the swift activity but of overcoming danger, but of working for the benefit of good health and long life. So it's said that this connection is there, and in this first verse to green Tara, it mentions that connection, whose water-born face arises from the blooming lotus of Chenrezig, protector of the three worlds. So it's related. It's her connection to Chenrezig, and is praising Tara with a reference to this legend. So, like I said, when you recite the praises to green Tara, these are less important than how to connect it up with our own personal obstacles. Then the next verse pays homage to Tara, praising Tara in relation to her, the brilliance of her face and the light blazing from her body. And it says that it relates to, blazing light of 1,000 stars and 100 full autumn moons. That's how her face is. It's so bright. And it's said to be, we should think that this is an expression or a manifestation of her practice of patience and the six perfections. It's a result of that. It's a sign that she has perfected, brought to perfection, patience, generosity, right conduct, skillful right conduct, diligence, meditation and wisdom. And he said that just looking at her, one's pleasures are pacified. She's so peaceful. Yeah, he says the same. Yeah. So you can, if you have the translation, you can read the verses. The next one says that with reference to the color of her body and all the implements she's holding, it also represents that the causes of her beauty and what she's holding, and this is due to the 6 perfections. So it's praising Tara by referring to her form and to all the attainment of the 6 perfections. That she's attained liberation through the 6 perfections. So that's how she becomes a Buddha, is through practicing, meditation, wisdom, and bringing those to completion. And of course, we should think that we also need to practice these perfections. We should make a strong aspiration to do that. Then you praise Tara with reference to the respect that is shown to her by all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Says, whose deeds overcome infinite evils. You have attained transcendent perfections without exception, and upon whom the sons of the victorious ones rely. So it means that we praise Tara. It says, homage to you, or we praise Tara, the crown pinnacle of those thus gone, of all the Buddhas. So even the Buddhas place her above their head. It's meaning that even the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas pay respects to Tara. So if they pay respects to her, how much more should we? If she's a crown ornament of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, if she's the mother of all the Buddhas, then ordinary beings, we as ordinary beings, we sort of need to pay attention as well. Then it praises Tara with reference to how she overcomes obstacles. Where it says through the syllables Tutari and Hung, and her feet tremble, the 7 worlds, and she's able to draw all beings to her. So lights are emitted from the mantra garland, and it sort of refers to the different realms, that she's able to overcome all obstacles. The next verse, you're praising Tara with reference to how even worldly gods worship her. It says gods that are not fully enlightened, like Indra, Agni, Brahma, Gandharvas, spirits. They all praise Tara. So in terms of praising Tara, we're praising all the qualities of Tara as being again the embodiment of the 3 jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And because it's through the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha that our own path is brought to fulfillment, is brought to completion, how we can live our life according to the Dhamma and attain freedom from suffering. Then we praise in the next verse, praising Tara with reference to how she destroys, again destroying obstacles, all obstacles. She says she destroys entirely through pe and through the syllables, through wrathful syllables, with her right leg bent and left outstretched. She sits within a wheel of fire. So it sort of it again refers to overcoming these obstacles. So like obstacles are mentioned here in many different ways in the verses, like spirits or Gandharvas or demons, etc. But this we have to relate to it, how these 16 fears, how I explain these 16 fears, not in some ordinary way, so when it means obstacles and demons, we should think of my own negativity. Think about how I need to overcome the obstacles of my own negativity. That's how I become free from suffering. Pacifying all obstacles. through the three jewels, through Tara. So we're again calling out to Tara to accomplish that. And then there's the next praise is praising Tara with reference to sort of her wrathful aspect. Remember I said there's different aspects of Tara: white Tara, green Tara, wrathful, peaceful Tara, wrathful Tara, like representing wrathful compassion. So this represents purifying all obstacles and obscurations through wrathful compassion. So, just like we have, like many the other wrathful deities, where it represents wrathful compassion, just like a mother will sometimes slap a child very quickly to push them away from a hot fire, or push them away from a cliff, or because they're so close to danger that she can't just go there slowly and peacefully, and she has to be quick and fast and like that. So it's that kind of idea, wrathful or powerful, that destroys the kleshas and the afflictions. So here the maras relate to the maras of the afflictions, which is the worst, like the kleshas, all the what we mentioned, all these inner ignorance, attachment, aversion, jealousy, pride, etc. Then also the mara of the aggregates, because we identify with the aggregates, we identify with our body. It creates a dualism. And then the mara of death. So when we identify with the body, there's also, the body is bound to disintegrate. Us as being within this body, death is inevitable, causing a lot of fear and suffering due to our ego clinging. And then you have the mara of what's called Deva Putra. Deva Putra is sometimes called the mara of the son of the gods, meaning like being seduced. The mara of seduction. The mara of seduction of things that look like happiness but doesn't actually give it. A bit like you get lots and lots of sweets but you end up having toothache, stomachache. So here this relates to that. And sometimes is it the mara of Deva Putra refers to, or they are depicted as shooting arrows. If you look at this tanka there, this is the moment of the Buddha just before his enlightenment. You probably can't see, but if you look at it close up, there's actually lots and lots of arrows being shot at the Buddha, and they all turn into flowers. And it sort of represents the last, they call the last vestiges of maras that appear, the tiny, finest little obstacles that are trying to, wobble the Buddha, get him disturbed and disturb his mind and take his attention to these maras are trying to stop him becoming enlightened. Well, meaning just the last vestiges of defilements that were there. Maybe these aspects of attachment. But because the Buddha's power was so strong at that time, or the Buddha's realization, when we say power means realization, was so strong, they turned into flowers. This is what I try to point out to all the school children when they come. They love that. So then you praise Tara with reference to what she holds in her hands. Homage to Tara, whose fingers with the gesture of the sublime precious three, adorned with a wheel. So with her left hand at her heart, with her ring finger and thumb joined, this is her mudra, and she holds lotus. This is actually the three jewel mudra, called the mudra of the three jewels because three fingers are standing up. So it's, and of course she's, it represents, she is, in essence, she is the nature of the three jewels. And she's inseparable from the three jewels and from one's own root guru, or from the Karmapa, or who you think. And then you praise Tara as being the joyful ornament, due to the sound of her laughter and her crown ornament. So Tara is wearing this crown ornament of the 5 jewels, like all the Sambhogakaya deities wear an ornament of 5 jewels. When you see a wrathful deity, then they also wear a crown of 5, not jewels, but of 5 skulls, but it's the same thing. Represents these 5 wisdoms. The 5 kleshas have been transformed into 5 wisdoms. So you're praising Tara. She's wearing this radiant crown ornament. She's joyful, magnificent, in a garland of light, and her laughter conquers the demons and all the worlds, meaning our inner demons. Laughter is the sound of the mantra. Sound of the mantra, that means the sound is like sound and emptiness. Like when you also say sound of all things become the form of the deity, the sound of the mantra, and the wisdom, all thoughts become the wisdom of the deity. So it's like emptiness and appearance, sound and emptiness. And then you praise Tara with reference to how she accomplishes all her activities in the 10 directions. So she's summoning all good things, long life, wealth. She overcomes poverty and suffering, overcoming mental suffering, physical suffering. So when you think of this again, you think of all of these throughout all these praises. You think of Tara in front. You think of light rays from her heart enters you and all beings, and then all obstacles are purified. And you have this motivational bodhicitta, but we can think of all obstacles, like external obstacles, inner obstacles, physical obstacles, environmental obstacles. We think of it with that motivational bodhicitta. So also the crown ornament of Amitabha, like above the Tara. Sometimes you see above her, you see Amitabha. If you have a picture like the tiny little Amitabha, because she belongs to the Buddha family of Amitabha. So she wears Amitabha as this, above, like her guru. So it's the same as the previous. You just think light rays radiate from Tara with blessings and protection. And then you think, next verse says, you're praising Tara with reference to her wrathful posture. It says she dwells within a blazing garland that resembles the fire at the end of this world. Her right leg is extended, her left leg withdrawn. She destroys all the masses of enemies. Again, all these obstacles, or outer obstacles, inner obstacles, secret obstacles, any kind of obstacles. So she's sitting within this fire of wisdom. This is the fire at the end of this world age, but it's a fire of wisdom that burns away the darkness of ignorance and destroys all these obstacles through turning the wheel of Dharma. And we praise Tara with reference to light radiating from, in her heart, like her her body, when you think of all the deities, when you visualize all the deities, you think of them not like a physical, not like a statue, like a solid statue, not like a tanka, a drawing. You think of them like three-dimensional appearance, but like of light, made of light. So not solid and substantial, but like the way we see a rainbow appearing, we can clearly see the form and the shape, but we can also see through it. So and Tara's body is hollow, and in the center of her heart is a hum, syllable hum. And here you're praising it with relating to this light radiating from the syllable hum. So that's when you think of light radiating towards you, it comes from that hum in her heart, which is her seed syllable. So it says, with a wrathful glance from your eyes, you subdue all the various levels through the syllable hum. And you're pressing your heel and stamping your foot on the earth. So it's similar to the previous. Like all this, you just simply think that you are visualizing Tara in front, and you feel that you are receiving the blessing, and all obstacles are, and like all the different various things that we mentioned so far. Then you praise Tara with reference to her Dharmakaya aspect. So her truth body, the Dharmakaya aspect. This homage to you, Tara, happy, virtuous and peaceful one. The very object of practice, past beyond sorrow. You're perfectly endowed with Soha and Om, overcoming completely all the great evils, all obstacles. So says she's happy. She's happy because she has overcome suffering. She has this happy, virtuous and peaceful one. She's virtuous because she doesn't practice any non-virtue. She has perfected all the six parameters. She doesn't accumulate any causes of suffering. She's peaceful because she has no afflictions. All her negativities have been pacified. She's a Buddha, and she's always her mind is always stable in meditative stability. So that's why I say she's passed beyond sorrow, and she's peaceful. So you're praising that day with this verse. Then the next verse you're praising Tara through her enlightened actions of both her peaceful and wrathful aspects. And again, it's like before. So it's through the 10 syllables, like Om Tari Tu Tari Tu the Soha is a 10-syllable mantra. Homage to you, surrounded by the joyous ones. You completely subdue the bodies of all enemies. Your speech is adorned with the 10 syllables, and you rescue all through the knowledge, through the letter Hum. So again, just thinking that lights radiate from her heart. Then you praise Tara with reference to how she says she shakes the 3 realms. Says, homage to you, Tara, I praise. How it says it in here? Namo. Namo is Sanskrit, and that means homage. So homage to you, Tara. You're stamping your feet, proclaiming Turi. Your seed syllable itself is in the aspect of Hum. And it causes all the 3 worlds to tremble and shake. So this is like a wrathful aspect of Tara, that she has the power to overcome all harm. So it's like you're praising that aspect of Tara. Then you praise Tara with reference to how she totally purifies all mental poisons. All poisons. It says, you dispel all poisons without exception. Homage to you, Tara, who holds in your hand the moon like the celestial ocean. You dispel all poisons without an exception. So this is, you're paying homage to Tara, who liberates from the poison of all the kleshas, the afflictions, mental afflictions. So some of these taras are described as they hold slightly different things, but this is not really necessary and not really so practicable when when you're chanting the praises. It doesn't matter if you know all the details of what he's holding in one hand or the other hand and the different colors. Then you praise Tara with reference to how she dispels, it says, quarrels and bad dreams. She dispels disputes and bad dreams and all spirits, and she eliminates fights, quarrels, bad dreams. So, again, any kind of obstacles, but this is particularly related to fighting. The next one is you're praising Tara with reference to how she eliminates diseases or epidemics. Just homage to you, Tara, whose two eyes, the sun and the moon, radiate illuminating light, and you dispel all violent diseases or epidemics. So it says her two eyes, like the sun and the moon, her two eyes also represents both her peaceful and her wrathful aspect. And it relates to pacifying all kinds of diseases, both like what we talked about before, outer obstacles, inner obstacles, secret obstacles. So these obstacles in terms of diseases related to the elements, the 5 elements, and inner obstacles in relation to imbalances of our winds and channels and elements, and secret obstacles in terms of our mental activity. All of these, we feel that that is what is meant by says how she eliminates the different diseases. It covers both mental and physical. Then is you praising Tara. This is the last one, I think. Praising Tara with reference how she destroys it says spirits and zombies. So it says homage to Tara, adorned with the 3 suchnesses, perfectly endowed with the power of serenity. You destroy the host of evil spirits, most excellent and sublime. So the 3 suchnesses it relates to, so it said that this relates to when you're visualizing yourself as Tara, you visualize syllables in the 3 places, forehead, throat and heart, representing body, speech and mind, white, red and blue, Om Ahum. And that by you meditate on all these 3 syllables, and then all obstacles of body, speech and mind are purified. It's actually a common meditation in the various deity practices. So in terms of spirits and all of spirit, what I mentioned here, again, you can relate to it in the way we say outer, inner, secret obstacles. Whether something exists or not, whether we believe in spirits or not, whether we believe in external ghosts or not, the obstacle is the fear, and and that is like our belief in something as being real, based on our belief in something as real and solid and separate. So it doesn't matter so much what we call it. So then it finishes, so that was the last of the 21 praises, and then it finishes just with 2 lines where it says, Samye ngaji tepa didang chatsalvani nishu sajik. So this concludes the praise of the root mantra and the offering of the 21 praises, because in a way these praises are also like an offering, like a calling out and like an offering, paying homage to Tara, to the Buddha, to Tara as a Buddha. So it concludes these praises, and then you recite then the benefits. There's a short prayer of the benefits, where it says that if you have like the right mental attitude, if you have like a devotion and understanding of what Tara, the qualities of Tara, or what Tara represents, of the body, speech and mind, and if you have then respect and faith in that, meaning faith and respect in the 3 jewels, and in your own Buddha nature, in your own potential, and in the qualities of the Buddhas, then you should bring to mind all these qualities, and the Buddhas have the bodhicitta motivation. You should remember all the qualities, have the bodhicitta motivation, and then you should, with the bodhicitta motivation, you should ask for all these things, all these obstacles to be sicknesses and problems, external problems and internal problems, all of them to be pacified, and also for all the good qualities to arise. He says, if you want a son, you ask for a son. If you want wealth, you want the wealth. If you want a daughter, you can have a daughter. If you want, basically it just means we should think of all the most beneficial things. We should think of all the different obstacles in all the levels. But of course, for the benefit of all sentient beings and with bodhicitta motivation, it doesn't mean just like, I'm praying for like a Mercedes-Benz or something, like that famous song. Oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? Oh Tara, please. It's not like that. It's you're saying you have to have the correct attitude, the correct mental attitude of bodhicitta, and the whole view of Dharma, and that you are wanting to purify your own mind and develop positive qualities. So then it said that the benefit will arise. It says you will attain fearlessness, you will attain freedom from obstacles, because that is the qualities of all the Buddhas. And until we have attained Buddhahood, we will always have fear. Fear is it is a shadow of duality. Fear is a shadow of a dualistic mindset. So as long as we have a belief in a self, and along with that arises the other, and along with that arises attachment and aversion and all of the kleshas. As long as we have that, there is fear as a shadow. Along with all that, it is just inseparable. As long as there is appearance, there is shadow. As long as we have the 5 skandhas, we have a form, there is a shadow. Our body always has a shadow. So fear is an inseparable part of belief in a self and a dualistic mindset. It is an inseparable part of samsara. But with the realization of and the qualities of Tara and the Buddhas and Buddhahood and the total flourishing of all the qualities and the benefit that arise out of the path of the practice of the path, then we achieve fearlessness. Because we see through the illusion of a self, and everything else just falls away by that. So I think that is, we've actually finished like 4 minutes before time. That is the swift activity of Tara manifesting here. So I hope that this has helped to clarify some of it. Like we recite this in the mornings, and for those of you who are joining in our online morning Tara, and you might be doing it on your own at home, and joining other places, I don't know, then I hope that that has helped to clarify and to give it meaning, so that it makes sense. It's not just to find that connection with what the meaning of Tara. So I think we have to leave it there. Then we do dedication, and then we should dedicate it. So we should dedicate it thinking that dedicated to the Dharma, to the growth of the Dharma, to the flourishing of the Dharma. We should dedicate it to the long life and good health of all the great lineage masters, that the lineage may be strong, and all the lineages may be strong. All the lineage masters have good health and long life, and not only our lineage masters, but all the different great masters of all the beneficial religions that practice non-violence and compassion and wisdom. And we pray for all of the practitioners of all those different lineages who are trying to apply themselves in doing, in developing and growing in these teachings, because that is important, that we continue to practice and we continue to apply ourselves. Without students, there's no one to carry the teachings forward. Without masters, there's no one to teach us and guide us on the path and for us to follow. So we have to have strong teachers, we have to have strong students, diligent students who study, who practice, who contemplate. And then we have to pray for the goodness in the world, of all good things to happen, and all the war and conflict and environmental disasters and all the different floods and diseases to come to an end. That's how we should think when we dedicate. So we think for the benefit of all sentient beings. May my practice grow. So we can think like that when we dedicate. Sometimes people think, oh, am I being selfish? Should I not be thinking of my own practice and benefiting my own practice? We should be thinking like that. We should dedicate it also to our own benefit, and wish and pray that our own practice may grow and my own qualities may grow, so that it all goes in the right direction. So that's how, anytime you dedicate merit, you should think like that, for the benefit of both yourself and for the benefit of all beings and all the good things in the world. So let's do that, and I hope lots of you will be on the Tara praises tomorrow morning. Nam de tham je zebane tom ne nye pe danam pam je ne je ga na je bala tu paye se pe sole do wa do wa sho sam jo sem jo rimpo je ma je panam je jo je je pa nyam pa me pa dam kone kondo pel wa sho. Is there one more? Pal den la me sha pe den pa dam Kanyam yong la de je jong wa dang Tashen Malu Susa Devjane Nyodo Sande Sala